Hi and welcome back to another Photoshop manipulation tutorial, and this time guys we're going to be focusing on a UFO and actually being captured by one. So you can get captured by one, you can actually do it with your kids and that. I'll show you actually how you can recreate the photo at home. Very easy to do with just a mobile phone. So let's start off first of all with this one here. So we got the background, okay? Right, 1 second. We already opened it up, losing my mind already. Okay. Let's go. Right, so this is the actual sky that I actually found. Okay, so obviously you can see nice and blue. We've got the light source here, and obviously being dark over this side. Now, obviously with the UFO that's going to be there, we're going to have this bright light, white light that's going to be shining down. So I didn't want anything to be taken away from that. I wanted the main source of the light come from the UFO, and I just wanted like the rest of it to be really dark. I wanted the main focal point to be on that UFO and the person actually being captured. So with that in regards, I actually done the exposure and that lot and just got rid of this kind of area. Just made it kind of rough kind of area. As you can see, it's not brilliant down here, but in regards to that, it doesn't really make too much difference because we're going to have the ground and that lot coming in now. Okay, so for this ground, we have, let me just get rid of these layers here for you quickly. Okay, so for this one, we found this particular, obviously this green field here, which I actually really liked. So the person's just basically out walking in the field at night and obviously gets captured by a UFO. So in regards to actually getting rid of the sky at the background, basically what I did was do quick selection and then just mask the sky out of that lot. So that was pretty much very straightforward to do. So obviously now we have to match the sky with the actual ground itself. So in regards to that, what I've done was, first of all, add some curves and exposure, make it nice and dark, because obviously the sky is really dark as well. We'll leave that one off just 2 seconds actually, and then we got the exposure as well. As you can see, it's going to be really dark, but obviously in regards to this, as we know, the light source is going to be coming down as well, so all this ground is going to kind of be lit up, like especially in the main center bit and that lot, but this area background here is going to be really dark. Okay, so there is a bit of a light source coming so you can actually see things, but this is night, so we do want that area to be really dark. Then also the most important parts also is to actually add some color balance. So as you can see, I made all the changes with the mid-tones, highlights and shadows and stuff like that. Just basically just messing around with the values and that lot until you can actually find exactly where you want it to go. Exactly with the hue and saturation as well, doing it with the greens and stuff. Okay, and then next thing is this one here. So okay, so obviously this one here, I done it so that we could just add this particular light. Now for me personally, when I went about setting about this image, it's kind of like just messing around with it. Like I kept going to and from, swapping around and just trying to find how I wanted it to look. Like, I mean, you can set the ground up roughly how you want it, and once you start putting the UFO, the other lights in, go back to the other layers, like your ground layer, and then start making some changes there. Don't worry about it overly too much when you first start the ground level up, because you're not quite sure how big the light's going to be and whatnot as your creation flows. Just keep dropping back up and down and just making those changes until you feel really happy with it. Okay, so let's move forward. Okay, so this is obviously, so we've got the glow on the ground. Obviously this is going to be happening after the UFO actually, so let's start with the UFO first actually. This go with that. Okay, so with this UFO, we got obviously all these different kind of layers here. So for this, I found this online, not too sure where, but I mean, you can find loads of UFOs online, so it's entirely up to you which kind of like one that you actually want to go with. So I found this one, happy with that, and then obviously we need to make some changes and that lot with it. So obviously with the exposure we have here, so as you can see, we made it dark around the outside. So once again, we're focusing on this center bit, we're focusing on the person actually being captured by the light as well. So it's obviously these sides here are going to be a lot darker. Then we have like the light source here, so we're making this a lot more brighter onto this area, because obviously this light here, even though it's small, it's going to be shooting down, obviously it's capturing the person up, but as we've seen with like UFO movies and obviously everyone says it's the big bright white light, you know, shining down. It's never a small light, so obviously that's going to expand around to the UFO as well, so we're capturing that onto these kind of areas as well. Then obviously another area there as well, just to make sure that we got this nice and bright there. So all of this is now glowing up in that light. Okay, so for this one particular, I used like the overlay, so I just added like another layer, filled it with gray, put the overlay in, and then obviously just brighten it up until I found like the kind of way that I actually wanted it to be suited. So as you can see, pretty much very straightforward to do and that lot. Obviously with this particular ship already, I didn't really have to change too much anyway of the colors because I was quite happy with it. Kind of like really matched the background as well. Okay, so then we have this one here. So now we've got the light on the ship. Right, so we got light. Right, so we got the light source here. So first one here is this one here. Now, okay, so as you can see, this one's shining down. Now, the way I've done this was actually use the polygon and lasso tool. Basically, just start from there, put lines from there, all the way back up to the top. So you just basically got that kind of shape. Fill it up with white, and then all you got to do then is just go to filter to blur, to Gaussian blur, and then just mess around with the values into like as you put more blur onto it, get rid of like the solid color, and it'll just make it like this. And with that, then you can really like go into, you can Control T, really shape it up, change it up exactly how you want to. It's entirely how you would want it to be seen fit. So obviously this isn't like the finished article, so this is like just the first one that I actually got made. And then we obviously got another one as well. So I made it so like this bit up here is a lot more brighter. So it's a lot more brighter up onto this kind of area. As you can see, especially with these these clouds. This is one of the reasons I quite like this cloud. It gives that kind of like misty kind of feel as well. So then we've got this light shining down onto here. So we've got the brighter light, especially up here. Then it's shining down onto the ground. So you can see where the ground is lit up now. So obviously it's a little bit lighter onto the left and to the right side of these grounds, but obviously then it's a lot brighter to the center as well. So that's kind of like where I was messing around like with the values and stuff that I was saying before. Okay, so we got those two lights anyway there. Then we got to obviously have a little bit more light onto the ground, okay? Obviously, because this light's really, really bright, and obviously he's quite close to the ground, this UFO. So obviously, in regards to that, it's going to be a lot more brighter onto the ground. So basically with that, once again, all I did was light on the ground. So it kept it as normal sort of thing. But with the actual brush, I actually just we fold it up. So when we open it up, basically the best thing to do is to squeeze it down like that, so it's a bit more flat, so it's onto the ground, rather than have the brush just like as normal and that lot. Just fold it up, then that way I'll just sit onto the ground a lot better. And then all I did then was just drop the opacity down just a little bit lower, just so that it's not overly powerful onto that particular floor. And then we just carried on messing around with some lights until I really found how I wanted it to actually look. So we got the light onto the ship, and basically like with these, you got more things. I haven't used anything particular. You can use like color dodge, soft light, other bits like that. I didn't really feel that I needed to use any of them, so I basically just painted it on with a brush, just messing around, reshaping it, like I say, with Control T and that lot, until I found like a kind of like a sweet spot, and then just messing around with like opacity and things like that. And it's just getting down to like personal preference of how like bright and white that you want it. You could probably do it a little bit with maybe some less layers than what I've actually done, but it's just more like trying to get a feel for how I actually wanted to look. And in the end, I was really happy with how that one actually turned out. Now in regards to the girl, so now as you can see here, this is my this is actually my daughter here. So what I wanted to do was actually be caught by the UFO. Now, the biggest trick I will say for this one is like you want to actually look like you're actually being obviously up into the sky, okay? So one thing I found straight away is obviously you can't have anyone too low. So you can't have them too big in the picture or anything else like that, because you've got to make sure that their feet are especially above these tree levels. Because if they're down there, it just looks like they're stood onto the floor, okay? So that's one of the most important things. So they are literally floating into the sky. So being mindful of that when you're setting up and scaling your actual image as well. Now, in regards to how she is here. Now, this is the actual photo that I took at home. Okay, so this one, not very good lighting, but this is to express, like, I try to show people that you can pretty much do anything with anything, right? Do you know what I mean? So obviously, she stood here. All we're doing is there's no proper lighting, even though I have got proper lights. It's like, there's no real natural light. Obviously, it is daylight, but as you can see, we got that orange light from the fluorescent light shining down, which is basically the one that's just above me now, shining down onto her. Now, I wanted to use that light, okay? So yes, it is a bit yellow and that lot, but then we got that light shining down because it's shining down on the face. So not, like I say, not setting up any lamps or anything else like that. All I've used is just the light above me, just turned it on and got her to look up like that. Now, also, as you can see, she's leaning back and she's got her arms out. One thing I will say, though, is if you do want to do this kind of thing at home and you do want someone to actually do it, like be in the image, right? Don't get them to try and stand like that because it's really hard, okay? So what you want to do is obviously have a couple of practice runs, 3, 2, 1, pretend to take a picture, get in the stand, like to move into like that kind of position. Yeah, so kind of like time it right. So you go 3, 2, 1, ready, and then they're kind of like lean back. One thing you're gonna notice when you look down at the bottom though is your feet. Our feet are flat pretty much. Yeah, apart from like a right foot there slightly pointing down, but both the feet are pretty much flat. So the idea for this is what we wanted to do. So we take her and we place in there. So obviously with my daughter here, when we actually placed her in, like, oh, let me just get rid of these. Oh, hang on a minute. That one there. Okay, that's it. Right. Okay, so obviously we make all the changes and stuff like that, because obviously otherwise she's going to be really, really yellow and stuff like that. So change the hue. And I use the hue and saturation mainly just to take the yellows out of her skin and whatnot else. And then we just make all the changes. You mess around with it. Obviously you want to make this lot brighter here. So if we move into this bit, as you can see, so she's a lot brighter up onto there because obviously we've got the light source coming down. But obviously as we use that light source from the light that's above, from the room. Oh, there you go, pressing things now. Yeah, because we're using. Let me get rid of that. Get rid of that. Oh no, yeah. That's the one. Yeah, so because we use that light, that's going to be the light anyway. So we've got rid of the yellow. But where we do have that real bright light, one thing we do want is a bit more shadows into there. So we wanted to create those shadows into those kind of areas as well. Obviously, with like cutting out, it's entirely up to you how you actually edit the person out. I personally like to use the quick selection tool and then I mask the person out. Use the refine for the hair and whatnot else. If I have to draw the hair in afterwards, I'll draw the hair in afterwards and whatnot else. But the most important part with this, once I edited it out and she was up into the air, is that because her feet are flat, it looks really odd. Like if you even though when you go up in the air, like some people might not point their feet directly down, but you do want it pointing directly down, just for the sole fact that it just makes it look a little bit more realistic. So for me personally, the best way to go about this is what you do is you have to go to edit, you go to puppet warp. And what it does then, it obviously lines up there. So once you drop all the pins into here to hold the person into place, and then basically just shape the feet back down. So use the pins on the end of the feet and just bend them round, and then that works absolutely fantastically well. And then it just looks like she's actually floating the way that she is. And then that was pretty much it for her, really. It's very simple to do once you got in there. But obviously you can see once we had this particular image now, once it's kind of like finished in a certain degree, but what we needed to do was make it a little bit more dramatic, so to speak. So first of all, we added in a color filter. Obviously we had that beautiful blue sky in the background, but it's really, really lost and it's really like grey and dull at the moment and stuff like that. So for this one, I added in a blue color filter. So it's like the warming filter, just the basic ones that you actually get in Photoshop anyway. Got that one and just messed around with the density and stuff like that until I could actually find how I exactly wanted it to look. And then basically, as I do with everything else, a bit of camera raw, because camera raw is where you kind of like really bring the photos to life. But I will say with this one, I didn't really have to make too many changes, because with this one, it wasn't really a hell of a lot to actually change. A lot of it was actually done. So once I actually went in, basically all I've done is mess around with that, mainly with the highlights. So boosted the highlights up because we wanted this area to be really bright. Drop the shadows, obviously, so these areas are really, really dark and that lot. Once again, love my clarity, and I love texture as well, like that. I think texture really works well in images. It's just my personal preference to have to use it. But yeah, drop that in and that lot, and then mess around with some blues and stuff like that. Not to go crazy because we already had the photo filter in anyway, but just to then just mess around with a few different values and stuff until we found the correct one, and then we come up with this particular image. And the final outcome I'm really, really happy with. It does look like she's floating away and stuff like that. And like I say, you can recreate this. There isn't many layers. We've just basically got the ground, the sky, and the UFO, and obviously the person. So there's basically just 4 different types of images, a few layers, a few color filters, and away you go. So I hope you guys found this tutorial very helpful. I shall be back in another week with another one, and I shall see you then. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.